All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to be joined by the one, the only, the one who calls himself just another guy with Wi-Fi, the GOAT of BookTube, Muad'Dib Mike from Mike's Books. Welcome, Mike, to my humble abode. How you doing,
I was
buddy?
beginning to think maybe I showed up to the wrong place because I never had an introduction like that before. That's pretty good. Thanks.
So I really appreciate you stooping to come on my humble little BookTube channel. I really appreciate that, man.
Oh man, you are an up and comer. I'm excited. You know what? And I didn't watch your video with Jake because I didn't want to have these questions spoiled. So
I changed them up for you.
great. Okay. Make sure
tailored.
I couldn't cheat. No, I don't like to cheat on stuff like that. I like to see the ridiculous on screen.
How's your reading month going so far?
Oh, not bad. Not bad. I put out a video today talking about, I decided to take a break on Malazan. And, anytime you can do that, it feels like it lightens the load just a little bit. But yeah, pretty good time. We're continuing reading with the Tad Williams, which we're enjoying. And, you bailed on us, but that's okay. That's okay. You have a real job and stuff like that. So, that needs to take priority. And, today I started reading my first James Bond book. So that's pretty exciting. Because I'm a big James Bond fan, but I've never actually read Ian Fleming's. I've read a couple of Ian Fleming novels, but never like in order, like I'm going to do now, reading it from the beginning. So, yeah, it's pretty nice where you can just kind of, you know what, I feel like reading that today. Why not just pick it up and see what happens?
How does it compare to the movies, to the films so far?
I'm only about 40 pages in. There's a lot more French than I expected, but the villain in that one, the chief, is a Frenchman. So you guys kind of expect that a little bit, but it wasn't something I was expecting when I started reading it today to read so much French, which I know not one iota of. So
I haven't read a single one of those books. What else are you reading?
John Carter of Mars Barsoom. Really remembering what I love about that series. Like I said, I'd only really read one of them back in high school. And, again, refreshing my memory. Because I was just like, I just really want to go pick up a book two. It's been 28 years, Mike. Why not just go ahead and revisit, start from the beginning? And I read it and I'm like, I can't believe I stopped with the way that book ended on a huge cliffhanger. I can't believe I ever didn't go seek out the newest one. But at that time I was at the mercy of my school library and they didn't have it. So, that's just the options we have as adults now. But yeah, and so much, I'm enjoying it so much. I went and picked up Tarzan today, to get some more Edgar Rice Burroughs, because I think that guy was just sharp as hell. The stuff that he was doing 100 plus years ago, the stuff he was imagining. We're 10 years from discovering flight here, and this guy's describing airships and space battle and stuff. And it's just like, how are you even thinking of this stuff? So yeah, very, very forward thinking guy.
Was it like 1910,
1913 was John Carter of Mars. Yes. Princess of Mars. So yeah. And we learned flight in 1903. So, we're still very much a fledgling at this thing. And he's describing airships and space battles. It's just nuts.
Yeah. My late father-in-law was a huge fantasy and sci-fi buff, and he left behind a really big kind of voluminous collection of Edgar Rice Burroughs, the Tarzan, the John Carter, and I've never touched them. I've never read a single word the man has written. But I was listening to a lecture on the history of science fiction because I had to kind of give a presentation to my class, and the guy was saying, if you ever get those great courses series, they're pretty good. The guy was saying that that the early John Carter of Mars stories were basically just an extension of like Westerns, right? So, and I couldn't tell you if this is true. I'm sure he's not lying to me, but he said that John Carter was a Civil War veteran, and he was like prospecting for gold or something like that when he went into some cave to hide from Apaches, and then that's what sent him to Mars somehow. But basically, the guy was just making the case that John Carter stories are basically just, and early sci-fi stories, the pulpy stuff, were really just extensions of Westerns in space. And in this case, Mars. You know, the idea of you have this dusty expanse, and instead of Apaches, they're these weird aliens. What do you think of that?
I think so, because you've heard me say before that I think that Star Wars at its best when it tries to be a Western. And these books definitely, George Lucas read these when he was younger. I mean, it's influenced Star Wars, Superman, Dune, Avatar, all stuff like that. So yeah, I can see the gunslinger kind of vibes from it. Sure, sure.
You how's Beowulf going?
Almost done. Almost done. Like I said, much better reading it this time than reading it when I was 16 years old. And at the time, like I said, in the class back then, we'd read 5 lines, and then the teacher would be like, "Okay, what do those lines mean?" And we're all like, So Tolkien, he puts it in a language we can all understand. I think he was very good at doing that, I think. So yeah, it's made a lot more sense this time. But I'm sure as soon as I talk to Philip about it, I'll be confused again. So
I'm really excited for that.
Be like, "What'd you think about when this, and this?" I'm like, "I didn't know that this, and this happened." So yeah, that'll be a fun conversation, I'm sure.
So I wanted to talk to you too about this Michael J. Sullivan guy, and I'll tell you why. Because as you pointed out earlier, I have a very intellectually taxing job. And so when I get home, there are days, in fact, most weekdays, where I am not interested in reading any of this like Malazan level stuff, right? Where I just want to sit in my comfy leather chair in the den and read something that is, gripping and compelling, but also kind of lighthearted and fun. Not a guilty pleasure read, I guess, but just, like as you said in your video, a comfort read. And so it seems like Michael J. Sullivan would be a good, would fill that niche, I guess. And I've always been fascinated by his book covers. Whenever I go into Barnes and Noble, I always pick up that book with the tree, Age of Myth. And I'm just like, what is in this book? And I saw your interview with him, by the way. So I was wondering if you could tell me why I should read Michael J. Sullivan, and if you think I would like his stuff.
I think anyone who's into fantasy will enjoy his stuff. I think that we've got to the point where people feel like now, if it isn't like an overly complex world, it's just not worth your time. And I make the argument of I don't know when we started treating traditional fantasy as like, oh, that's just kid stuff. I think there's always room for that, especially when you read a lot more heavy series. Like I think you reading like Alistair Reynolds, yeah, your brain's probably exhausted. You need something like this, but you don't want to get away from fantasy and just read like Michael Crichton or Blake Crouch books, which I think you should. But I'm just saying, if you want to stick to fantasy, I think it's good. People mistake me saying that they are comfort reads for meaning that they're dumbed down or they're for simpletons or something. That's not what I mean at all. It's very much like in a Dresden Files way. There are layers there. There's stuff that if you want to dig deeper into it, you can do that. But you don't have to take notes on the number of characters, take notes. You don't have to draw a map to figure out where everybody is at all times. You don't have to make an Excel spreadsheet to list all the factions and stuff. You can kind of keep up with it pretty easily. And I think the way that he writes his stories is just what he told me was why he decided to use elves and dwarves, because he didn't have to explain them. You already knew what they were. So that kind of made it one less thing that he had to confuse his reader with. So never felt like it was saying that he was lazy. It was more that he just he just wants to write a good story for you to enjoy. You don't feel like you got to kind of uproot your life to enjoy his stuff. So yeah, the way you put it, just kind of want to just kind of detox the other day. That's what me and Madison were talking about the other night when we were on that chat. Is that, yeah, it's something that you don't have to make a big commitment to get into, but you won't be able to find yourself able to stop. And that's what makes them great.
Yeah. And I guess, so that all sounds really interesting. And anytime I've watched one of your videos or someone else's videos talking about one of those books, I find his plots sound fascinating. It sounds like he does good character work and things like that. But I also kind of worry, and this, I'm probably wrong about this. I don't know, because I haven't read his stuff, but I worry that it's going to be like kind of like akin to sort of Shannara or something like that. And before anyone gets mad at me,
I made a video defending Terry Brooks. So
I know. And I actually fully agree with your take 100% about Terry Brooks. I think he's important in the history of fantasy. I think the way that you put it in your video is that he took fantasy off life support. And I think that you're right about that. I think that in a post-Tolkien world in the 70s and 80s, he was the guy out there proving that there was still a hunger for fantasy, and that fantasy books could sell. And so I feel like he if anything, for nothing else, he deserves our respect for, like everything that he did, and for, it's derivative, obviously, but for kind of breathing life again into fantasy, and kind of proving that there was still a market for it. So I do respect his stuff, but I read Sword of Shannara, and then I read like halfway through Elfstones of Shannara. And unlike you, I could not keep going on the journey. I appreciate the guy. I probably would have liked him more when I was 13 or something like that.
I think what I said, I read it then. I read it right after I read Lord of the Rings, and I didn't care that it was like Lord of the Rings. I just wanted more Lord of the Rings at the time.
That's right.
But what I say about Sully is I feel like he is a throwback to that time period, but his stuff still feels modern. And one thing I will say about Shannara is very predictable. I'm one of those kind of people that's along for the ride. I don't want to try to figure out stuff. I'm figuring out stuff 3 or 4 chapters before it happens reading a Shannara book. I never feel like that with Sullivan. He always surprises me with some of his twists and turns along the way. And they never feel like the subvert expectations in a way that just kind of disrespects the reader. Never feels like that. I think his work, because he writes the entire series before he releases a single book, and he'll release one, then he'll kind of get a little bit of feedback and make little tweaks along the way before he gets there. But he knows his beginning, middle, and end before it's even released. And I think that's really what helps his story stay strong.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like I don't have a problem with subverting expectations if you're not subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations. If you've got an amazing idea, like Frank Herbert's Dune, right? You're doing something that has never been done before in science fiction. You're basically single-handedly inventing the sword and planet genre. And you really do have a great idea, and it just so happens to subvert expectations, then great. You've just opened up another like avenue for, sci-fi fans. But if you're just doing it to be, like there was this playwright, I don't know if you remember him, Bertolt Brecht, and he was this like avant-garde playwright, and he would just get up there and he would stage these plays that were unbearable to watch, because he was trying to like prove that not every story had to be archetypal, and I'm just going to do something radical to buck all the trends. And he would like shame people in the audience and throw things at them. So I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of just going out there and trying to like take a wrecking ball to something that's good, and things like that. But it sounds like I would enjoy kind of what Michael Sullivan does.
I think so. It's one of those kind of things I say. It's nothing that you got to be like, I got to put everything on hold I'm doing right now to read these books. But I think that when you need kind of a little break from something seriously heavy, but you don't want to go back to reading like junior high level books, I think that you'll find there's plenty to like there. People really think that when you say it's a comfort read, they think that means it's for dummies or something. I get that a lot with Dresden Files. That's not what I mean at all. It just means like you don't have to uproot your life and take notes to enjoy the story.
Yeah, you said it's popcorn rather than steak. That's good. I like that, because I'm at school right now. I'm teaching the things they carried. So I'm teaching the history of Vietnam, and I'm doing this war, series of short stories with them. And then I'm teaching them Locke in philosophy, and we're reading 1984 at my 10th grade kids.
That's
are reading
a heavy workload.
It's a heavy workload. And sometimes speaking of Michael Crichton, sometimes I just want to sit down and read Sphere or Jurassic Park, both 2 excellent books.
Yeah, my wife teaches English as a second language, and she's read 2 books on Mexican American studies this month, and she's reading the Ted Williams books with us. I'm like, I don't know how you're doing it. I have no idea. So yeah.
It's just mentally exhausting. Like I don't get home and want to go to sleep, but I get home and I'm like, this is too much for me. I cannot read a chapter of Sun Eater right now, because I'm going to have to read it over again the next day. So
yeah, that's why I was joking with Jake about how it took me three weeks to read a Sun Eater book. And I was like, I don't think that's that outrageous, guys. That was a big book, so. No,
you know, in the BookTube world, there's this pressure to like speed through books, and in normal people land, it is okay to have this gargantuan 760 page book and to take a few weeks to read it. So
yeah, we working full time, and also when you eyes only, I don't do the audio thing. It's sometimes
that's right,
it'll take as long as it takes.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about BookTube. I've been fascinated. Most times you're there was the one with Moyd where you talked about BookTube, but usually when you're talking about nothing, you end up talking about fantasy and sci-fi and horror exclusively, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about booktubing. I'm just curious, what drew you to this? What drew you to the booktube world? And I'm just kind of wondering how this all began for you.
It's kind of a happy accident, really. I ran a podcast for you. I did all kinds of podcasting for a long time. I did sports, and then I moved to just a friend, just wanted to talk about just, geek culture, anything that was big at the time, comic books, movies, music, anything, video games. But one thing that we never really were able to talk about was reading, because he wasn't really a big written word reader, and I was always like, I need someone to talk to about this stuff. So I'll just do this like on the side, So I made like this little on the channel at the time, which was just for that podcast, which we get like 8 views per episode or something, and because those episodes were like 3 hours long. I understand that. And that's things I didn't understand back then, that people weren't going to watch stuff that long usually.
Same with me.
But I just made an introduction there, and then I just decided I was just going to record these Wheel of Time like video diaries for myself. It was something I never really meant to upload. I was just going to kind of record them for myself so I could because I just knew it was a long series. It was the first time I'd read fantasy like that big in a long time. So it's going to be a long series. I wanted to be able to go back to it for reference sake, but I was afraid that like I would have like a hard drive failure or something and lose this video. So I decided I'll just go ahead and upload them to the channel, just keep them there. That way I have the fallback if I ever need to go back to them. And then overnight, I'm like, whoa, this got like 300 views. What in the world? And then I started researching. I'm like, there are people who actually review books on YouTube. I have no idea. So at first I didn't know if it was just the Wheel of Time thing. So I decided I was going, well, let me just do the same thing, but for First Law, see how it does. Now I didn't do as good, but it did okay enough for me to keep trying new things. And then little did I know, this BookTube thing was way bigger than podcasting ever was. So podcasting, the problem with podcasting is there's a million people doing the same kind of thing that you're doing. So with this, I said, you know what, I'm going to kind of grab my own little niche here. Not only just talk about books, I'm going to talk about adult books. I'm not going to talk very much about the YA, the stuff that I know that, let's be honest, YouTube's mostly a young person's game. So I'm never going to be as big as some of those channels are, but I said, it's what I kind of want to focus on. I mean, no one's going to look at me and mistake me for a 20-year-old. So I was like, yeah, why don't I go ahead and talk about the stuff that I really, really like, and see if there's any people out there like me. And it turns out there's quite a few. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, it was a big, happy accident, really.
I feel like there's going to be a market for, not to be rude or anything. I'm not a spring chicken either, right? I'm not some kid in my early 20s doing these really innovative things with technology. I'm in my mid 30s, but I feel like, as we get older, there's going to be that older generation that is fully online at this point, right? My mom, my dad, they're both on different social media apps at this point. And I feel like you're going to have older content creators, and you're going to have people that want to watch older content creators. And so I feel like it's not even weird that what are you, in your early 40s?
43. Yeah.
So I don't think it's weird at all. Actually, I think this is going to be, it's going to be the way it's going to be from now on. I think you're just going to have different generational niches there. I just think probably, teenagers probably aren't going to watch your show as much, sure, because your references are like right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. I'm not too concerned about that, but that's why I don't. And that's the thing, is I'm never going to try to do that, because I've seen people like my age try to talk like they're trying. You just, oh my God, it makes you just want to like claw my ears off, So I'm never going to try, but I've got no problem with a good dad joke here and there, so I'm just going to embrace it. I'm just going to go for it. That personality either grabs people or it don't. I'm just always going to be me. So,
and I love that about the show. And so another thing I'm interested in is why fantasy, sci-fi, horror? Like, what do you think it is that draws you to speculative fiction?
I think it's just because there's so much about real life that is ugly, there really is. And I have always looked at fantasy because, like, I just didn't have a great childhood. So I wanted to, get away to another world, just get away from that true escapism is why I've always kind of leaned that way. Obviously, having a brother that was 6 years older than me, lived a little below the poverty line. So basically, my new books was whatever he had in his bookcase. And he had mostly, Lord of the Rings. He had Conan, stuff like that. That's kind of what I got into. And then of course, Star Wars was huge when I was a small tyke, and stayed that way for a long time. So yeah, that's kind of what always drew me towards fantasy and science fiction. And then when I got into high school and I moved to Texas, 15 years old, knew no one, but we had it was one of the best libraries I've ever seen in a school in my life. And I just kind of lost myself in there, really got into King and stuff like that. But that was when I started picking up stuff like a Edgar Rice Burroughs, like an Anne Rice, just anything that I could get my just a hands on that was just, an other world than ours kind of thing. And that's just kind of where it happened. And then I found Dune, and then it just kind of opened up that third eye, and everything was just, all right, I don't want to read anything boring anymore. I want to read stuff that's got, spaceships and swords and lasers and, women in gold bikinis and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that I want to read about. So yeah, I think just the simple answer, escapism. I see people that obsess over social media, and they're always in a bad mood. And I'm like, you know what? Put it down, read a book. You're going to feel so much better, because sometimes it feels good to just get away.
Yeah. Well, we have very different experiences there, because you kind of grew up talking about, I actually saw some of your early videos talking about, growing up and going to that library and reading these books, and basically reading all the books that the library had when it came to horror and books your parents wouldn't let you read and things like that. I did not grow up as a big book lover. I actually discovered my love of reading when I graduated. I became a mail carrier full time, and I was reading in my spare time, and I liked it so much that I said, this is like a really intellectual hobby. None of my friends read. I need to go to college. And so I went to community college, and I just totally kindled this love of reading, and it's carried forth to this day. But the thing is that I didn't get into fantasy and sci-fi until later. So when I was in college, I was reading really intellectual stuff, philosophy, history, the romantic poetry, Enlightenment thought, things like that. I didn't care about fantasy and sci-fi. I thought it was stupid. This is stuff that has never happened. I don't understand it. I don't care if it's, I don't care that people seem to like Tolkien. I just don't care about any of it. And then it was when I was in graduate school, my wife said, we should turn off the television and we should read to each other for entertainment. And it was her turn to pick the books. And I was kind of fascinated as to why so many people liked Harry Potter. And she said, let's read Harry Potter. And I said, okay, I'm not going to like it, but let's do it. Let's give it a shot. It's your choice.
I'll try to read out loud to my wife. Sometimes she's like, no, stop. I'm like, do you have any idea? People love when I do this on YouTube. That's great. That sounds like an awesome relationship.
Yeah. And we did that. And I said, I want more, even as an adult. So I never read Harry Potter growing up. And as an adult, I was falling in love with the world and with the characters. And then, and I'm not kidding you about this, then it was, and I told Jake this, it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I said, okay, if I liked Harry Potter, is there a TV show we should watch? And she said, you have to watch Buffy. And I said, that sounds so stupid. The name is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I said, honey, I want to watch something serious, like a good television show, not a jokey, like teeny bopper one, like a serious one that is like fantasy or sci-fi. And she was like, no,
trust me, right?
This is seriously, seriously good. I wanted to ask you about that. Speaking of, you and I have a few things in common in terms of things we're really diehard about, but one of them is Buffy. I wanted to ask you about Buffy. Do you still watch Buffy? How long has it been?
Absolutely. All the time. I hate it when they took it off Netflix. I mean, I got them all on disc, but I think we've gotten kind of spoiled this digital age. Like, I don't want to go up there and flip discs and stuff like that. I just want to insta play it on my streaming service. Yeah. Oh yeah. I rewatched them all the time. I've probably watched the complete run of Buffy 8 or 9 times, watched Angel about 4 or 5 times. I love it because I think at the time when it came out, why it really drew me in was because you'd see stuff on TV at the time, and I'm going to date myself out of your generation here by talking about this. You'd see stuff that was on TV like One Tree Hill, Dawson's Creek, Seventh Heaven, and all these people that were my age use this vocabulary. I was like, kids don't talk like this at all. I don't care how elite they are. They don't talk like this. They do not talk like this.
Right.
So Buffy came out. They were the same age as me, and I was like, this is how we talk to each other. And I thought that was what we nailed with that, was how the kids talk to each other. So that was really what just kind of drew me in. And then, of course, I never expected the show to be anything but just like campy fun. But I was like, holy shit, this show's got themes. It's got really serious stuff on it. And yeah, I just kind of like grew up with those characters, like I said, because I was the same age as them. So I'm glad that you know, better late than never. But yeah, I think I'm glad when new people discover it. And a lot of people do. They're like, I just look so corny. I just can't get behind that. And then they watch it and I'm like, you're right. That's got a lot of depth to it that I didn't expect.
Oh my God. We're actually watching them all right now because we're going to make an episode about our top 14 because there's 7 seasons, obviously. So she's going to pick 7 and I'm going to pick 7. And we're going to make an episode about what we think are the best. Each of us think are the best episodes every season, except we're going to try not to cross over. So if she picks one, I'm going to go to if she picks one that I pick, right, I'll go to my second best one or something like that.
I might put like a 10,000 word comment on that video. Just warning you in advance. Because people ask me on live streams all the time, what are your like 5 favorite Buffy episodes? Like, I can't do that on the fly. No. I love them. So no. Yeah. And so what we're actually doing, and so it's been a long process. We started doing this in like November so that we could slowly watch all of them. And then we narrowed it down to 32. And then just about, like a week ago, we started watching the 32 and we're going to try to narrow it down to the 14. And then we're going to rewatch those and like try to make notes and try to like snap some, like go online and snap some pictures from each episode. So it's kind of a big project, but I'm with you. It's got everything. It's got great acting. I love the premise. I love the Hellmouth, and I like the fact that Buffy, there's this long lineage of slayers and things like that. The screenwriting, it's just such a witty show. The characters are so good. And I love how Joss Whedon, who are the other writers? Gosh, what time I could tell you, Marty Noxon. She wrote all the sexy episodes. If there was basically like an episode where there was going to be really sexy time, Marty Noxon, I believe that was her name. She
there's that. Yeah. Who's the woman that does a lot of the episodes? A lot of the really good episodes.
I think Jane Epstein.
Yes, Jane Espenson. Yeah, she's great. I just love the way that they weave in mythology and just the witty banter. It's just such a special show. Do you have a favorite character?
Giles.
I mean, really?
When you grow up without a real father figure, you always are kind of drawn to those characters that play a father figure for someone else that didn't have a father figure. Wow. And he was very much a father figure for Buffy. So yeah, he always felt like my TV dad. I always loved him.
Yeah. He's that perfect combination of like, he's tough on her when he needs to be. Then there's comic relief. There's downtime where he's able to like let his guard down. He's like the perfect balance that a dad should be. So I think that's.
But I mean, I think I can find something I like in just about every character. I mean, Xander is basically me, the everyman who's just always like, everyone around me is way more talented than me, but hey, I'll be the glue guy, you know.
I love like Xander.
That. So, yeah,
I love the everyman character. I love Xander so much. He's my favorite character. I for some reason I thought you were going to say Spike, but I should have known better actually.
I'm a Bengal guy, not a Buffy guy. So I'm Buffy Angel. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. You have
before the shipping was a thing. I was on that team. Yeah.
I love Angel too. Not as much as Buffy, but I still like it. It's got a different feel. I like that Angel's got kind of a noir feel that I really like. Kind of noir detective.
Have you read Dresden Files?
I read the first Dresden Files book.
See, out loud. When I read that, I was like, wow. So Angel took a lot of influence from this, or the other way around, actually. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I want to keep reading, because at a certain point, I mean, I could watch Buffy over and over and over again, but at a certain point, I kind of want, everyone tells me that if you want to read Buffy or something that's kind of like a combination of Buffy and Angel, kind of close to that and branching off of that. And the first book really reminded me of that whole world. So apparently I have to get on it. And as everyone says, after you read the first 2 Dresden novels, they start to get better and better, as you and Jake were.
True. I thought that was just a line that people gave me when I first started, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, when I talked to Jim Butcher, he was like, yeah, of course Buffy was an influence, you know, so.
Yes. I wanted to go back and I wanted to ask you as a booktuber, Mike, how would you describe your brand, what it is you do? Because it seems to me that you've built something really kind of unique with your channel. And I'll tell you how I kind of got into like the whole like BookTube orbit. My experience with different BookTube shows, and I promise I won't throw anyone under the bus or name names here, but I noticed something when I was getting into BookTube. You have different types of booktubers with different kind of brands. There are those booktubers that kind of dance like a monkey in front of the camera.
Overact a little. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's almost like I don't know if you've ever watched those really vapid late night shows like Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or James Corden, but you have these like YouTube personalities where they get in front of a green screen and it's kind of like, it's almost clickbait. They're just kind of dancing around doing whatever it is that will hold the attention of just whatever is ephemeral and is happening like at the moment, giving just hot takes and things like that, monkeying around up there. Then you have, I could be wrong about this, maybe this is reductive, but you have booktubers who don't even really talk about books, but who talk about the BookTube world and gossip about other booktubers, and kind of like they're kind of weepy, and they complain about their mental health and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what they choose to do with their booktubing time. And I don't know about you, but when I entered this space and I started coming across videos like yours, people like Philip Chase and Petrick and other booktubers, I was kind of turned off by a lot of that stuff. And I started gravitating towards your videos. When I found your videos, there was the first video of yours that I saw was the video where you were done reading Wheel of Time and you stacked all the books up. And I just said, are you serious? This guy went through and read and he had not read them before. And he's going to tell us about his journey. And that was it. I just watched every single video. And then I'm like, I got to start paying him because this stuff is so good. But I wanted to ask you what you think it is that makes your channel unique and distinctive. Like, how would you describe your brand and how you differ from like other like BookTube channels?
I think from go, while I created this channel, I was finishing business school because I did go back late. And I just found myself just out of nowhere minoring in marketing. So I learned a lot of ideas and stuff to do when it comes to building a brand. So with me, I said, okay, well, I want to do several things. First off, no politics, because that to me is just, there's no way that it ever gets across to people without someone being mad. And then your comments are just going to turn to people fighting. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to have a positive community. So the first thing I said, I'm not going to do that. Second, I'm going to stay positive. I mean, even if someone leaves a really nasty comment, hey, thanks for giving me a chance. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate your time. Because I mean, what more can you ask for from your viewers except for their time? That's what you're really asking them for with these things. And just communication. I was going to talk to people. I was going to, regardless if we can't talk to each other and when we disagree, I wanted us to get back to that. Let's be able to talk to each other if we disagree, because I don't know. I'm a Gen Xer. We grew up with, oh, you have a different opinion than me? Okay, well, let's talk about it. And you know what? And then we'd go and we'd have our Coke or our, get older, we have our beer together. It was not a big deal. Now it's just, everything's just got so tribalism where it's just like, you die. You don't agree with me. And, you're not thinking the right way.
Sociologists call this dignity culture. So there used to be honor culture, right? A long time ago. So there would be these blood feuds. And if you had a problem with someone, you would start fighting right in the street. You'd get into a duel. You'd set a date for your duel. They call that honor culture. And then they say that around, like mid 20th century, we transitioned to what they call a dignity culture, where you start hearing slogans like sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And like, well, it's a free country, so you can think what you want and we can disagree and let's go have a beer. All those kind of like, they're cliches at this point, but they were all based around this idea that, well, we got to share a democracy together. So let's just agree to disagree and, cheers. And the paper I was reading said that we've now transitioned out of a dignity culture and into what the sociologist Bradley Campbell calls a victimhood culture, where you earn status points by being the most offended. person in the room. So, and I don't know if that's true or not, but it struck
I
me
mean,
as
it checks out. If you spend any time on the internet, it checks out. And that's why I said that, yeah, YouTube is very clearly a young person's game, because you talked about some of those other channels. Yeah, that'll never be me. Not because I just said I don't want to sit here and act like I'm younger than I am. What I said was like, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest, even if it's unpopular. I'm never going to bullshit people about stuff. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm never going to force myself to read something that I'm not interested in and talk about it just because I know it's really popular or clickbaity. And I was always going to avoid all the drama stuff. And there was a lot of drama with some of these younger booktubers. And that's why I don't, I mean, I was 21 time too. I remember that stuff's just like, you need that dopamine hit. You need it. You need it. You need that stuff. I'm at that age now. I'm like, well, I got real life problems. I got a real job. I got kids. They're just a nightmare. Sometimes that's the stuff that matters to me. So this is a hobby for me. And I know it's a job for a lot of those other people. So they have to take it a lot more seriously. They have to do those things. Like they have to maybe say some things that they don't believe. I don't know. That's maybe assumptions on my end. They have to cover some stuff that they maybe necessarily don't want to, because they know that that's going to drive the traffic. They have to dance like a monkey, as you put it. They have to have a a Twitch gamer style personality. That'll just never be me. So I mean, on some of our Zoom calls with my patrons, they've seen me get like 4 beers deep. That'd be about the most goofy I ever get, maybe. But yeah, I'll never be that guy. I'm never going to do all the fancy stuff. Never going to do the jokes or the skits or whatever. I mean, occasionally I'll do something like I did before that Reaper's Gale review, where I did like the announcement. Occasionally, something like that. But I'm always going to be one fixed camera angle, looking straight in the camera, telling you, hey, here's what I thought about the book. What did you think? Let me know, so
that's what I love about your channel. You focus on the books,
and I'm always going to keep it about the books. Always.
Yeah.
About the books. Yes.
And I love that. And the thing that I think you hear most about your channel when I talk to people on the Discord, it's that I think what your channel does is they get really, really excited about reading, and whatever it is that you do. I don't know how you do this, as I think my brand is different than your brand. What I do is a little bit different, but what you do is you get people really excited to read these books. And then you create a culture where people can get together on your Discord, which is like the only place on the internet, I think, at this point, which isn't toxic. It's like, I mean, every once in a while it's open to the public, right? So every once in a while there's someone who is obnoxious, but it is remarkably free of I shouldn't use the cliche word toxic. It's remarkably free of assholes.
Yeah, no one fights.
Right.
I mean, there's people who, like I said, they did Secret Santa this year. People that become real life friends. For all I know, people have hooked up off this thing. I don't know. It's just that kind of community. People are really, they really do get along. And everyone that pops up there is just like, I had no idea that there were this many people who just wanted to talk about books. And I'm like, me neither. That's why I started this, because I was, doing a stay-at-home dad while I was going full-time through school here stuff for 2 years. And that's why I started this, because I need to like talk to someone who's not, 5. I need to talk to other people. And that was why I kind of started this. And that's when I realized, wow, there are other people out there. Because I knew one other person in real life that liked to read anything even close to what I did, and he's not a Stephen King fan. So it was like, okay, this was like a release for me. But yeah, I'm really proud of that community. And like I constantly keep saying, I know people think I like obsess over it and stuff, because look, I work in data, I look at stuff like that. I can't not look at it. Yeah, the channel growth really, really kind of just slowed down, maybe for reasons that our creator overlords might know about. But regardless of that, I feel like I've built a really positive community. And that was my goal, get other people to read. That was what I wanted to do, get more people to read and get more people to talk. So
what, just tell me, I'm curious about this. What has it been like what has your story been like rising to this level of popularity on YouTube? I don't want to say stardom, but just the fact that you're approaching 70,000 subscribers. And I want to know, like, tell me the story of what it was like to watch your subscriber count go from, a couple hundred, then a couple thousand viewers to where you are today. Like, what was that like?
It was surprising, because like I said, I podcasted for years, and it's so hard to find a foothold in podcasting. It really is. And I mean, even at like the peak of that podcast, we get maybe like 100 downloads on iTunes, you know? So we had a loyal, but even with that, it was like people didn't really talk back to you. So, I mean, people could be listening and they never really say anything. I mean, think about if you listen to any podcast, do you ever contact the people who do the podcast? No, you just listen, right? So it was kind of weird for me to first have people talking back to me for a change. And I think because of the way that the internet can get right now, it was really crazy to me that it was like overwhelmingly positive when I started. I was like, I'm not used to this at all. I mean, even when I was doing the Geek Media Core podcast, there was always someone that was mad because I said I liked Batman more than I liked Spider-Man or something. You know, it was always people just, geeks like to get mad, so I know I'm one of them. But I was really, really wild for me when it started to really take off. And I think the one silver lining for me for lockdown was that was on my channel. Kind of people had more time, I guess, and so I found like a bigger foothold that time. But it was still kind of surreal to me when I get emails from a complete stranger in Turkey telling me how I've changed their life. That's just the greatest feeling you can get as a content creator.
All right, let me stop my cat 1 second. He's
Sure.
trying to like knock a lamp over, and this is going to get really bad. I got to throw him out of the
Cats
room.
are crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to edit this out, so I'm going to chew my ice really loud. All right. I say leave it in.
So have you figured out how the algorithm works yet?
No. And the thing is, every time you figure it out, they change something. Like if I haven't been the S-worded that I've talked about before, if that hasn't happened, they've changed something for sure. Because like I didn't change the way that I did anything in like the last 4 months, just off a cliff. And I know someone thinks it's because I brought up Ayn Rand in the things recently, and I'm like,
no,
this was happening long before that though. And I realized like I've been talking about Lovecraft on here, and if Lovecraft didn't get me in trouble, I don't think
it's not that. It's not that, because there are some people like people who like her philosophy, objectivists, and that's all they watch are Ayn Rand videos and things like that. And there are people with all sorts of different perspectives, and those videos will show up in their feed. But I wanted to tell you, there was like a week there where for some weird reason your videos weren't
I get a lot of messages. Some of
your newest videos
anymore
weren't showing up in my feed, but they are now. That problem is over. So it was just a weird week for me. I don't know why it was, because then I would go on Discord and people would say it's not happening to me. So I don't know why it would happen to me and not them.
It's really weird. So it makes me think that they changed something recently. Maybe, I don't know, because it was right around the time they changed the thing where you couldn't see thumbs downs anymore. So it makes me wonder if they've changed more with their algorithm than that. If it isn't the old S word, but I don't know. I don't know. And the thing is, it's like, yeah, sure, I'd love for the channel to keep growing. If not, I'm happy with the community that I built. I don't think that people believe me when I say that. I am happy, but yeah, I would love to keep meeting new people. And I feel like this, I mean, wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met, the people on the Discord that I really, really talk to like every day at this point, and I would like to continue to meet new people who share these interests that we do, so that's really what it is. This isn't, like I tell people, this isn't a job for me, guys. I don't do this for the bucks. And I'm going to be honest with you, doesn't pay that well anyway. So it's book money, guys. It's all it is. It's book money. This isn't living money. At least not for me. I know there are other channels out there much more successful that they do make a living off this, but no, I didn't go to finish business school to do something I could have done when I was 15, with a webcam. So that's not why I do it. I do it to get a greater reach, show this appreciation for something. Like, for example, no one I knew was reading Michael Crichton until I started talking about him, and I got a few hundred people to read Michael Crichton. Hey, I've done my job. That's kind of what I want to do here. So that's why it's important for me to continue to grow the reach and grow the channel. It's not a financial thing for me, but I know people, they think that's a lie, but I was like, guys, my daytime job pays me fine. I'm not depending on this. I don't have to, make some crazy money off this or something. That's really not why I got into this. When I was really frustrated at podcasting, I said, I don't care about getting paid. I don't care about access. I just want people to talk to me. That was always my goal. And I feel like I've got that. So yeah, I'm always going to be goal driven, and I would love to grow my channel and stuff like that. And anybody who's just getting started, that's why I always try to put a spotlight on them and help them out, because I know when you first get started, it's tough, man. It's tough when put a lot of, you think about when you edit a video for like 3 hours and 12 people watch it. I mean, that's disheartening, it is,
Yeah.
but like I tell people, I mean, I did this for like 8 years before it took off for me. So it's a grind, and you just got to kind of stick with it. But, be yourself. Don't be scared to try new things.
Yeah, I love that. And I also like that you take risks. That's one of the things I promised myself with this channel, is that no matter how big the channel got, whether it, it climbs slowly in the very low thousands, or it takes off because something happens, that I wouldn't be afraid to take risks. And I like that you'll review obscure, like Michael Crichton books that no one's ever even thought about for the last, 20 years, and you'll review it. Right. And that'll be your video for, that week, the next couple of days. And I like the fact that you kind of balance popular stuff with taking risks and reviewing kind of more, obscure stuff, right? You're reading John Carter of Mars. No one else is doing that. So I like that.
I'm gonna do an Edgar Rice Burroughs video here, probably after I read some more, maybe read some Tarzan, so I can talk about it a little more. It'd be really weird for me to do a why you should read when I'd only read a couple of stories, So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'd like to. That's why I kind of did that with Robert E. Howard, is because I want to get everybody on the tube talks about Lovecraft one way or the other, things like that. There's those classic authors, Tolkien, obviously, that everyone talks about, but I was like, no one talks about Robert E. Howard. So I did that. So I'm going to try to do the same because I went and looked for Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff, and it is sparse on the tube for Edgar Rice Burroughs. And for all I know, no one will watch, but you know what? If I get, like I said, 100 people to check it out, hey, I've done my part.
So you were talking about reaching out to people and making connections, and you started this because you wanted to talk to people about books. Who are your favorite booktubers out there right now? Who are the content creators on YouTube who just, I don't know, really inspire you, motivate you? Whose work is valuable to you, just whether they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers or millions, or whether they're just a smaller channel? Who's doing interesting stuff right now?
Well, people always say this is a shot. It's not a shot, but I don't watch very many big booktubers anymore. I don't want to say they feel commercialized. I just feel like they aren't the same as they were when they were like my level.
Power corrupts.
Well, maybe. I feel like maybe they know that they've got to feed the beast to keep their core audience and stuff. I think it's one of those things where when I first did a couple of Berserk reviews, everybody thought I was falling down that trap that every booktuber seems to, and they start to see their audience slow down. They start doing the manga because manga is huge. It is huge. So they start doing mine, and I wasn't. I was like, no, I'm doing like this one series. That's it. I'm never going to be the manga channel. So, I really like Philip's channel, obviously, because when I watch stuff with Philip, I feel like I'm learning stuff.
Yeah.
And he's so different than my brand. And that's the thing, is like, I wouldn't want to watch anyone I felt like was like me. I want to get other ideas, hear other opinions. And I love the way that Philip can always look at a book and he'll bring out 9 or 10 things that I didn't even see on my, like he reviewed a Dresden Files book and he brings out like a dozen things. I'm like, God, I never even drew that out of it. Yeah, that's really, really prevalent. How did I miss that? And that's what I love about his channel. So that's a guy I never miss any of his videos. He's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I love his videos, and it can be something as simple as, John Gwynn or something like that, and he's going to teach you about Celtic mythology.
Yeah, and he's going to speak another language, like a show off.
Saran Disclair. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that.
And he's such a nice guy too. He's probably the nicest guy I've met off of the internet ever. So I mean, it's hard for me. I mean, he'll just email me occasionally just to say like, hey, I hope you and the family are great and stuff. I mean, who does that? I mean, people I've known my whole life don't do that. So yeah, just a great dude. And the fact that he can talk about books in a way that I no one else is, that's for sure. And you being a fellow teacher, you gotta find mad respect in that game, right?
I do. Yeah, it's kind of like what we kind of feel like our brand is I'm kind of an outsider in the fantasy and sci-fi book world, because as I pointed out, I didn't get started reading fantasy and sci-fi until kind of late. So I would say what we're trying to do is, my wife is a science professor. She has a PhD in physics and hydrology, and she teaches courses on geology and things like that. So she's quite the mind. So she's a scientist. I majored in philosophy. I have a bachelor's in English. And I went into teaching, got a master's degree, went into teaching. And I think the way that we are approaching this is we are like outsiders to the fantasy and sci-fi world. And we're coming at it like really giddy, enthusiastic. I always take a philosophical perspective, a literary perspective, that sort of thing. I like to talk about history and mythology and not so much politics as you mentioned, because that just doesn't ever go well. And my wife likes to read books like The Expanse and talk about the science and what they got right and what they're doing that's kind of interesting. And I like to talk about the deeper themes, I guess. So I would say that's kind of our brand. Is when I listen to you, man, you just have a voluminous knowledge. You've read pretty much everything. And so when you make a video, you can make, 100 associations of this is like this, and this came after that. And this is the second time I've read this series or whatever. I'm coming at it kind of like, whoa, what is this book? And let me apply my knowledge of like classic literature, which that's a field I'm strong in, and philosophy, and kind of illuminate these books. And it's not about like, I know a lot about fantasy. It's more like I'm totally smitten with this genre, and maybe come along for the ride with me or whatever. So,
That's a good point about classics, though, because I think that people think because I am big sci-fi and horror and fantasy that they were surprised to find out how many classics I do actually really, really like. And they were ones that I was forced to read in high school, and I don't hate all of them. In fact, I like a lot more than I dislike. But I was like, it's kind of like if you grow up, you listen to one type of music, aren't you eventually going to want to go back and realize who influenced them and who influenced them before them? That's kind of what me with writers. Stephen King, he talked about how Lovecraft was like his gateway. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's do that. And then Lovecraft's talking about like Robert E. Howard and Edgar Allan Poe. Exactly. So I just kind of work backwards like that. Yeah. I want to find out where the roots of all these things are. So yeah, I treat books very much like I treat music or movies, and that I want to find out who influenced these people that I love that are doing what the stuff that they're doing right now.
Yeah. So I referring back to your chat with Jake, I saw that you guys were doing wish lists, and I said to myself, I'm talking to Mike later this week. And that got me thinking, what is your wish list for me? What do you, Mike, wish that I would read? And it could just be one book if you want, but whatever you pick here, I'm telling you, I promise if you pick one book, I will read it. So I promise to abide by it. Whatever you pick, I will read it by this summer. I can guarantee you that. So you have a lot of power here.
I wish I had time to think about it. Now, I know you've read Dune.
So. I've read Dune. I teach Dune. There's only one exception. Okay, you can pick anything. I will not be reading Malazan. I'm just saying. It's not that I hate it or anything like that. It's just not really my jam. It's not really for me. I don't have the patience or the bandwidth. So what do you think?
Man, gosh. How much King have you read?
I've read On Writing, and I've read It, and that is it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go with The Stand. It's only like 4,000 pages long. You're fine.
You got it. It's already on my TBR. I made a video saying this is a book I want to read in the spring. So, two birds. I escaped that one with a book I was already going to read.
All right, great. Hey, well, back at you. What you got? What do you want? What do you want me to read that you think I haven't read yet?
Oh man. All right. So you don't have to promise to commit to anything like I did, but
you're going to say Alistair Reynolds, aren't you?
Yes, I am going to say that. So it is indeed Alistair Reynolds. And I want you, my wish for you is to read the Revelation Space series. So the thing to keep in mind about Alistair Reynolds is that, and I know we've talked about this before. I was telling you one day, you asked me on one of the patron chats if there's an element of Steven Erikson there, if the experience of reading Alistair Reynolds is like the experience of reading Steven Erikson, given how dense it is. But I want to say, yes, Alistair Reynolds is similarly dense, but I also want to say it's a very different sort of thing. The thing about Alistair Reynolds is that, yes, it will take you quite a while to read each chapter, but if you read closely with patience and with an eye for detail, you'll never be confused about what's going on. It's all there. It's not like Steven Erikson, where you can stare at the same sentence 100 times and you're not sure who's talking, where we are, why, how did the characters switch from this to that, what they're doing, what the hell is a Warren? Alistair Reynolds is it'll take you a little bit longer to read because the prose is dense and there's a lot of exposition, but you will never be confused. Trust me, I know you at this point. You will not, it will just take you a little bit to read each chapter, but once you do, you'll fully know what's going on. And I think the criticisms people level against him, that there's too much exposition, that it's a little bit zoomed out from the characters and it's not enough inside the characters' heads. I think that is a fair criticism. I do wish the character development was better sometimes, but I would say that Reynolds makes up for these deficiencies with, he is the only person working in sci-fi who can do what he can do, which is he writes big idea science fiction. He will blow your mind. So you might not be like, oh, I'm totally obsessed with Ilya Volyova or Anna Kuri. Like, he doesn't linger on them enough for you to fall in love with them, right? Dan Sylvestre. That's not it. When you read the ideas, right, there's just the aliens, the worlds, just the concepts, right? We're talking like planet-sized sentient ocean creatures that when you enter inside of the ocean, it uploads your consciousness, but you have to bring it a gift. Bending and folding space-time, just uploading your consciousness so that you can spend time with your father after he dies. There's just rich people in a cyberpunk world on Chasm City getting bored because they're so wealthy and just completely out of touch with everyone else, that they literally hire assassins to come after them and try to kill them so that they can have the adventure of escaping from the assassin and trying to get away. Like, he comes up with the most strange, idiosyncratic ideas, but it's all logical and it's all based in natural laws of physics. And he's just brilliant. And so I want you to read. I'm sorry for the rant. I so badly want you to read.
I had no idea what the series is about. I have that series. I said that I would read it after Book of the New Sun, which from what I understand is much closer to Malazan than this, apparently. And
Book of the New Sun's
that you have no clue what the hell's going on.
As dense as it can possibly get. This, you'll know everything that's going on.
Well, that's encouraging, because that's been my biggest thing. It's like, look, I do like Malazan, but it's just like, you have to have your head in the right place to read that series, or you're going to just be throwing the book across the room. And those are big boys. You could break a window with one of those things, you know? So
yes, they are. It's really got to be worth it. Okay, right. So Mike, are you ready I want to close this discussion out with 20 questions. Are you ready for 20 questions?
Sure.
Rapid fire, my man.
I hope I don't do the thing. I tell you what, I'll do the best I can.
No worries.
Alan hit me with one of these rapid fire things, and then the video was 35 minutes long. So
no worries. We're going to make a rule. You keep your answer to under a minute, so it'll only take 20 minutes. And you can and think about it as much as you want, but you got to answer in under a minute. All right, let's do it.
All right.
Hard or soft magic system?
Soft.
Oh,
do I get to explain why? Because
just a brief.
After I've read so much Brandon Sanderson, I don't need to know the science of magic. I just need to know, hey, why can Gandalf do magic? Because he's a freaking wizard. That's why he can do magic. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, me too. Your favorite fantasy race or creature?
The Bene Gesserit have always just fascinated me. I mean, I know that they're technically supposed to be like the villains, but the fact that this ancient order has planted like these myths and legends for thousands of years, where these people on these outer planets believe that this stuff is like prophecy, is just like, you talk about playing the long game of politics. That's amazing right there. Plus they have like Jedi powers. What's not to like?
Love it. Good choice. Favorite fantasy trope, assuming that you do have one?
I love a dark overlord. I mean, it's just something I'll never get tired of. I mean, you can give me the same carbon copy of Sauron every single time and getting kind of that in Tad Williams series right now. And you know what? I am perfectly fine with it. I love me a Dark Lord. I don't even need any more explanation besides they're just evil. I'm fine with that.
Okay, good. Favorite genre of fantasy literature. So this could be grimdark, epic fantasy, high epic fantasy, sword and sorcery, urban fantasy, Arthurian, military, whatever it is.
Does coming of age fantasy count? Because yeah, coming of age is something as a Stephen King fan I've just grown to absolutely just hunger for. I need a good coming of age, and since most of these protagonists start as young teenagers, and it's usually about their journey through to becoming a man or becoming a nice young lady, it's always a fun adventure for me. So it doesn't matter what setting it's in, but it's got a little bit of extra charm in fantasy when because in fantasy it always means that your parents got to get killed and you got to learn how to grow up overnight. So that's why I like obviously about Paul Atreides' journey. Any other kind of, any John Gwynne book, that's probably going to happen. You got parents, it's not going to end well for them. So it's something that I always enjoy.
Well, because of this, and I knew this about you already, you're a big fan of the Bildungsroman, coming of age, that sort of thing. I want to make a recommendation to you. You may have read Dickens before, but I think Dickens does coming of age better than any other writer who's ever lived, in my opinion. And so I would recommend to you Great Expectations.
Done it.
And David Copperfield. And David Copperfield is Dickens.
That was on my list. David Copperfield's on my list. Yeah. And he do Oliver Twist?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I think that one of those two. Yes. Definitely.
Very good. Exactly. Okay. Favorite sci-fi genre. And so we're thinking about things like space opera, Sword and Planet, Dying Earth, alien invasion, apocalypse, dystopia, cyberpunk, whatever it is, alternate history, that time travel, whatever.
I didn't think sci fantasy was a thing until I talked to Rockio. Now he's got me convinced that sci fantasy is a thing because that's what he considers his series, what he considers Dune. I'm always like, look, it's the best-selling science fiction book of all time because it's science fiction. All right. But, that's a conversation that is for another time. But I never really heard of Sword and Planet until recently. That would be like a genre, but yeah, I guess that would be kind of what sci fantasy means, really, Sword and Planet. So yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that a little bit more of like the space opera, but the fun kind of way and like a Star Wars way. I'm okay. Like with Red Rising, yeah, the quantum physics don't check out. That's fine. I like it. I like it being Star Warsy. I don't need it to make sense. It's fine.
Okay, so your favorite Song of Ice and Fire character?
God, man, that's tough because
I think I know this.
There's so many, and it really does feel like after the show came out, everyone's was Tyrion, and it was always Tyrion for me when I was reading it. But I did love Jon Snow as well. But God, I don't know. Jeez, that's a tough one. That's really flip a coin because there's some of the villains in that series I love. I love Tywin Lannister is like one of my favorites in that series because he's evil Batman. He's always 3 steps ahead of you, every idea you had. So I always appreciate that. But I also really grew to love Sir Davos. But probably my unpopular pick is God. Oh, how do I want to say this? Stannis the Manus. He's the rightful king. Deal with it. Kiss the ring. Bend the knee. Stannis the Manus.
Oh man. Okay. Number 7. Okay. Be a betting man here, Mike, and tell me, does Winds of Winter come out within George R.R. Martin's lifetime? And does A Dream of Spring come out in George R.R. Martin's lifetime?
Yes to 1, no to 2. I think that we will get Winds of Winter. Don't think it'll be tomorrow. I don't think it'll be in 2023. I think we will get it. I feel like at this point, it has to be mostly done. He's just a perfectionist, and he's just going to keep. I really do think the negative feedback of what the stuff that happened on the show that people didn't like spooked him a little bit. So he felt like he had to go through and kind of tweak some things. And with him, tweaking is a lot. So I do think we'll get that one. But if he doesn't have like Dream of Spring, like 3/4 done now, it just the basic math and his health doesn't check out on that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Number 8, what is your most prized book possession? So another way of putting this is, if God forbid there was a fire and you've already gotten your loved ones out, what is the first book that you would save? What's the first book you'd go for?
Probably my first edition of It. That's the one with the best cover. I love that cover, just the green claw coming through the sewer grate. If I could
Oh,
get one book signed, that would be it. But I mean, it's kind of weird because it's probably one of my more worthless ones, but my Dune paperbacks that I read when I was in high school that were just basically like my awakening. When I got like the new paperbacks they put out, I thought, oh, okay, I can get rid of these now. And I just looked at them and I couldn't let go of them. I was like, you're never going to read them again. And I was like, but you don't understand. That's my high school formative years right there. So I don't know. Those are always going to have and the thing is like, I don't even have the first one because I read it so much it broke in half and my mom threw it away.
oh man, I was gonna say you should like keep it in a glass case or
Oh
something.
no, she
It's
threw it away. I was
sentimental.
livid. She's like, I'll get you another one. I was like, yeah, but that's not mine.
That's not the point. Okay. Number 9, hardcover, paperback, e-reader, or audiobook, or I guess some combination of all of those. Which is it?
I mean, it just depends on the situation. If I'm laying in bed, I want to read on my Kindle because it's much easier to read in bed in case you fall asleep and you get smashed in the face. It's much better if it's not a 14-pound Brandon Sanderson book,
Same
right?
here.
But if I'm like, my primary reading spot is right here at this desk and I got a mess, give me the hardcover. I always will take the hardcover. But I've kind of fallen in love with trade paperbacks because I love that you can open them up all the way and the spine doesn't crack. And, the pages lay flat. I love that. So, yeah, it just really depends if I'm in a sitting up position or if I'm laying down. Like even in my recliner, I've kind of gotten used to the Kindle now. So,
Yeah, I can't read a mass market paperback. My eyes are fine. It's not that. It's just they don't stay open.
Spines. Can't stand it.
It's just they're good for door stops, I guess, but that's about it. Online book buying or brick and mortar stores?
I'll say this is tough. If I'm buying used, I want to see it because I don't know how many people have ever bought used like new on Amazon. It gets to you and it looks like it went through, World War II. Right? So yeah, if I'm buying a used copy, if I'm buying a new one, I will admit that I've probably been buying off Amazon probably more than I should because I am real big about support your local bookstore stuff. But guys, I don't have one near me. I really have to drive 25 minutes just to find a bookstore. So yeah, it sucks.
I hear that. It is what it is. Yeah. That's what happened to me when I bought it. I went in search of, I said, I'm going to review it on my channel. I'm going to get a nice edition. And so I tried to get that beautiful hardcover black with the hand reaching out of it. And I ordered it and it said it was very good quality. And then it came and it was a piece of raggedy shit. And so then I was like, okay, well, I can hold this up in my video, I guess. And then I just decided it's so shitty that I didn't even hold it up in the video. I just held up the Kindle because it was just all beaten up. And what I did was I brought it into school and study hall. The next day after I brought it into school, this little kid, this skinny little nerdy kid in the back row during study hall, I watched him read that every single day for like a month until he was finished with it. And I was like, okay, I'm not even going to send this back. It happened for a reason. It was great.
How old are these students?
Well, it's I teach at a charter school for advanced students, so it's grades 6 through 12. But this kid was like 10th grade.
It's about the same age I was, but
Yeah,
I was just saying, like, we wasn't too young.
He's reading. I mean, look at this dystopian hellscape out there where no one's reading and everyone's just staring at their phones. The fact that he was even reading, I'm like, I'm just going.
Oh no, I'm always in support of. I'm just worried some parent might get mad if I.
Yeah. Okay, your favorite nonfiction book or books? Nonfiction.
Oh man, I am an obsessive nut about the JFK assassination, and I have read probably 15 to 20 books of just theorizing all kinds of evidence and stuff about that. And regardless of if you agree that there was some kind of conspiracy or not, there's a lot of stuff out there that makes you scratch your head. And I mean, 50 plus years later, we're still trying to figure it out. So yeah, that or any, rock biography. I love good rock biographies. The Dirt by Motley Crue is like one of the most fun books you'll ever read. Just like, I can't believe this is happening. That kind of thing. But yeah, anything on the JFK assassination. I don't have like a particular one. The guy that the movie JFK was based off of, he has a really, really good one. But yeah, Yeah, anything with that. So
Yeah, I just
tinfoil
bought
hat.
my what's that?
Tinfoil hat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. Nothing no one should ever stop you from reading about it. And no, it's I don't think anyone really knows what happened there. Really, did you read Stephen King's of course you did. Of course you did.
I was on Stephen King hiatus. I had broken up with him. I was so upset over the end of Dark Tower that I didn't read him for like 7 years. And then
And
when
this
that
brought
came out,
you
I was like,
back.
well, this is this JFK assassination. I can't not read this. And that was, thankfully, that was the book where I felt like he got his mojo back. So yeah, it was meant to be.
Yeah, you like rock biographies. I just bought my stepdad a biography. Was it autobiography of Bruce Dickerson? I know
That
you're
from Iron Maiden. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see. I haven't read it, but it struck me as something that he would like.
And that guy's like a polymath. He's super intelligent. Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They brew beer and he's just
flies planes. Yeah.
flies planes. Total Renaissance man. Okay. Number 12, Frodo or Sam?
Sam. I still argue to this day that Sam is the main character of the Lord of the Rings. He has the last words in the trilogy. He is the main character, and he has the greatest character arc in that entire series. Absolutely, Sam.
I love it. I'm here for it. Number 13, best sci-fi or fantasy adaptation. So it could be, I guess, television or film.
I mean, I gotta go Dune Part 1, right? Because I mean, it's a movie that is apparently the book that is unfilmable. And Denny said, "Hold my beer" with that movie. Hold my
Not Lord of the
latte.
Rings.
Well, you said sci-fi, didn't you?
I said it could be fantasy or sci-fi.
Oh,
but
okay.
I get your choice though. I respect it. But
okay, well, sci-fi definitely Dune Part 1 of Fantasy Fellowship of the Ring, without a doubt. Fellowship of the Ring was a movie that was just, I literally was in the theater. This is going to be bad. They're going to screw this up. There's no way they can do this. And by the time, at the end of Moria, I'm just like in tears in the theater. Like, I can't believe they actually did this. And it's faithful. And I feel like this is exactly how I imagined it. So yeah, it's tough to beat those two.
Yeah, I remember after I had read the books, I remember like rewatching the movies, because even before I was reading fantasy, of course, I went and saw those movies like everyone else. But I remember thinking that that the films were more grimdark than the books, and I actually really enjoyed it. Like everything was a little bit darker, and
you're decapitating people. Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of that in the books. So yeah.
All right, number 14, desert island books. You can only pick one fantasy and one sci-fi book. They'll be the only books, Mike, that you can read for the rest of your life. Which do you choose?
Well, again, I feel like I'm being lazy here. Can I pick the Lord of the Rings trilogy? I mean, my volume is one edition.
It's one book. It's one book.
And of course, I mean, I never get tired of learning stuff every time I read Dune. So, I mean, I know I'm really getting lazy here with my answers being Dune and Lord of the Rings, but I mean, that's my two books right there, So, but if I was going outside of that, it would just have to be just something really long that if I'm going to read the same thing over again, like Count of Monte Cristo or something, because it's stupid long and entertaining.
Yeah. Okay. Your favorite fantasy world. This might be redundant because you might just choose Middle Earth again. Not your favorite fantasy novel or series, but your favorite fantasy world. So this could be the one you think is best constructed, the most compelling. It could even be the one that you'd want to most live in. And let's say you can't pick, I'll make an arbitrary rule. You cannot pick Middle Earth. What is it?
Well, I definitely want to live there. But I gotta say, the Circle of the World from First Law by Joe Abercrombie, because I think that even though we're 9 books deep into that series, there's still so much that we don't know about some of these other lands in there. So I was like, with Tolkien, yeah, it's the most amazing thing. But you know what? He tells you about every little nook and cranny. I feel like there's just still a lot left to be discovered in the world of the First Law, and I'm just so compelled with the politics in that series and the way that he's just kind of grown that series from just the first book, you don't really leave, Adua, the capital, and then just slowly but surely you're getting around this planet, and there's still so much left to see. So yeah, I'm always going to be compelled by that, and the soft magic system in it.
Yes. Hey, I thought you were going to say Roshar. I thought you were going to do the Brandon Sanderson.
I'm not I like Sanderson. I'm just not as just enamored with it as everyone else is. I think it might be getting a little too big. It's the Cosmere.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Who is the best fantasy, number 16, who is the best fantasy or sci-fi villain? It could be the worst or the most evil, however you want it to be, but who is the best fantasy or sci-fi villain?
Dang it. That's good. That's good. I'm like going through like my favorite series here. I gotta say the Man in Black from the Dark Tower. And I think the Man in Black does show up in other Stephen King stories. I won't spoil those for people who don't know. But I think that was when I really realized that, wow, man, Stephen King's his whole universe is connected. And this guy is kind of almost like the puppet master pulling the strings over several of them. So, yeah, I mean, you've got a book that starts off with the Man in Black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. You're always like, what's this about? So, yeah, if there's people reading Dark Tower in the Discord right now, and they're already like, 2 books in, they're like, I see what you dig about this. So that has me very excited. But yeah, the Man in Black is quite interesting. King's best villain for sure, without a doubt.
Okay, it's definitely one I want to read. Number 17, best ending of a book or a series, could be either one, or best plot payoff, I guess.
This is going to seem really off the wall, but people who know what I've talked about recently know the ending of Lycanius is one of the
I knew you were going to say that.
I have ever read, and I did not expect it because it was like book 1 I thought was fantastic. 2, it was one of those like I was kind of iffy on it when I first read it, but thinking back on it, I'm like, no, man, that has so much good stuff in it, some layers. The first half of the 3rd book, I was like, oh man, is he dropping the ball here? And then the second half of that book is just great, and then the ending is just like, I've got to reread this because I will see so many things now that I didn't see the first time through. So yeah, it's definitely it's the most successful modern fantasy ending I have read. Just completely blows my mind. And Patrick agrees with me on this. It is just like, and that guy's read way more fantasy than even I have, and he's like, yeah, there's no ending like that ending. It's so good. I recommend people forget what they've heard and read that series, if anything, just to see that ending because it's incredible.
I only knew you were going to say that because I watched those videos, even though I haven't read a word of Lycanius, and you were going, totally gaga over the ending. Yeah. And you were just so satisfied with the way it resolved itself. Now I wonder, would you ever read that series again? Would you ever do a reread? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because like I said, there's just so much stuff that is planted there from the very beginning that you will see on a reread and be like, wow, there's so many threads. I mean, you'd be like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with the board explaining everything because it really is just so layered. It's so ambitious what that guy was able to do with a debut series. People give that guy crap for his writing style and stuff. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. That story was thick and it was good.
James Islington. Islington. Okay, number 18. We're almost done. Best prose writer in fantasy.
Well, I mean, he writes sci fantasy, but I gotta say Christopher Rocchio right now, right? I mean, it's not. And people think I say this stuff because he's my pal, and it's not. I mean, we're friends, I think, sure, but I mean, the guy's writing style, I compared him to Ray Bradbury, who's one of my favorite writers ever, because the guy he will write a sentence in that book, and every single time I'm reading on Kindle, I'm like, highlight this line, highlight this line, highlight this line, because it's just he's a wordsmith. It really is, and I'm not a prose snob. So I know everybody's like, everything's got to be like, after I read Patrick Rothfuss, everybody else sucked. I'm not like that. I don't read stuff and be like, oh, wow, this writing style is so beautiful. But when I notice it, I think that means it's something really special. Robin Hobb would probably be a runner up there. She's really, really good as well.
Now, Christopher Rocchio is an amazing writer at the sentence level, at the level of prose. Like his, not only is, and if you've read some of these classics that he's drawing from, one of my specialties as a philosopher was ancient Greek philosophy, and I know a lot about Christian philosophy and later modern philosophy. He's drawing a lot from a lot of different traditions, but he's not just copying them or anything like that. He's really working his way through these ideas, and there's just a psychological penetration, right? It's really reflective science fiction, right? You go deeper with Hadrian than you go with any other science fiction protagonist I've ever read. Just his inner reflections and his meditations on, I don't know, what it means to be a human being. I just think Rocchio is fantastic. He has some of the best character descriptions of any writer. Just the little descriptions that you use to tag a character with in between, I don't know, whatever they're saying they're having a conversation. He just has these beautiful descriptions that are totally original. There are fantasy writers out there who will use, I read Divergent once, and the author said electricity coursed through her veins. She said that like 37 times. And
the breath she didn't know that she was holding.
That's right. It's like, give me a break, man. And Rockio never does that. And I told him this privately, but I can share this because I don't care about the haters. I told him, you're 10 times the writer Pat Rothfuss is. Come at me, guys. Come at me. I don't even care. I think Pat Rothfuss is a good writer, and I think that series, it's not finished yet, but it's
well, don't you have to actually write to be called like
you have to write if you're going to call yourself a writer, man.
But as far as what you're saying about Rocky, all I'll say is I'll quote a character from that series and say, you're not wrong.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Very good. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just like Pat Rothfuss is like, it was a silence of 398 parts. And I don't know what he's talking about half the time. Oh, you're gonna do your cup meme. Yeah.
I get a lot of shit about Patrick Rothfuss, which I've said is a talented guy. His story just didn't work for me. Sorry.
He is.
Sorry.
I'm shitting on him, but he is actually a good writer, and I actually do like the story. I just don't think that it's the I don't think that it's the I don't think that it's the fantasy series that everyone makes it out to be. I don't think that it's the second coming. When I read the NPR top 100 fantasy sci-fi list, it was like number 4 or 5 or something like that. All I'm saying is Pat Rothfuss's series should be more like number 50. I'm not saying I don't like it. I just think it doesn't deserve to be up there with Tolkien and Dune. This was I
made that video of my unpopular opinion on Name of the Wind, and a lot of the comments there, a lot of people were saying, yeah, I probably do hold it at a higher level than I should because it was the first thing I read after Harry Potter. So it was like their introduction. So there is maybe some nostalgia attached, or maybe people just actually do love it. That's fine. That's perfectly fine.
That. Yeah, I get that totally. All right, number 19. All right, this is a complicated one. If you were going to teach a fantasy literature course, I do this, but I've got my own curriculum. So this would be you. What would you put on the curriculum? It doesn't have to be complicated. Just what are some must reads for you? I know Lord of the Rings and Dune, so if you're teaching a fantasy sci-fi kind of course, the kind of course that I teach, what books would you want on the curriculum? What books do you think would be essential for young people in order to learn about the genre and come away with like fundamental, like a base knowledge of the genre?
Oh, how about Ender's Game?
Sure. Yeah. I taught it this year. That's why I had to read it in advance and before I taught it. But yeah.
I don't know. That's to me, I think I would do more about themes than I would do than particular books. Because obviously Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey, I think is the most important one. If you're going to be going down this, if you don't like that theme, guys, you're probably not going to like this genre. Let's be real here. It's tried and true, and it never gets old because it works. So, if I got to really go, I'd probably go more like maybe like Arthur or something like Arthurian legend or something like that. Because I think there's lots that they can learn from something like that more so than, something that was written this century or last century rather.
Once and Future King, T.H. White, something like that.
I've never read that, so I don't know.
Oh, it's like Arthurian fantasy, something like that. Okay, cool. Number 20. What would you say is the most glaring hole in your fantasy knowledge? And by that, I mean, what is the book that you still feel ashamed or embarrassed that you haven't read yet? That's like so many for me, but you've read a lot more fantasy and sci-fi than me. So what is that glaring hole in your fantasy knowledge?
I wish I had that cheat sheet up I had when Jake and I talked. I had everything listed on that I hadn't read yet that I wanted to read. I'm sure there's probably a better answer to this because there's got to be something out there that people are like, I can't believe you haven't read that yet. But I kind of feel ashamed that I haven't read Brian Lee Durfee's books yet because I feel like we're personal friends at this point. He sent me the first 2 books, and he's just such an awesome guy. And I do plan to read his series this year because his last book is coming out. So It's probably not like the big epic, like, oh, I can't believe you haven't read that yet. But I look back on, I'm like, you sent me those books like a year and a half ago. Why haven't you read those? He's such an awesome dude, you know? So
He is.
probably that with a little more out of, personal shame than, I can't believe you haven't read that kind of thing. I mean, maybe Wise Man's Fear. Maybe that's the one that people bag on me the most. I haven't read. And I'm like,
Oh, really? I didn't know
I
you
don't
hadn't
like
read that.
I didn't like book one. Why would I read book two? Same with Lies of Locke Lamora. I didn't read book two because people told me it didn't get better. So,
Yeah, Brian Lee Durfee, I love his channel. And the thing is that guy's channel is better than my channel. And he takes a cell phone and he sticks it on like I don't know what he sticks it on, something
he
tall,
has an old lamp
a
and
lamp.
just
And
doesn't
then
have
he
the light
uses
bulb in. He just puts it right there between that lamp. Yeah, he did that in the middle of one of our Stephen King chats, and
he
he just
uses
did
a
like a
marker
random book tour. Yeah,
to hold it. It's a broken lamp, and he uses a marker to hold it in place. And then he just shouts at the camera, "Hi, I'm Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon. Simon and Schuster Saga." I just love, and it's still a better channel than my channel. And there's no equipment and there's no planning.
I tell people all the time, like, what advice would you give to someone just get started this? Like, don't spend a lot of money on equipment. I mean, I had 10,000 subs before I bought a real camera. I'm still using a webcam and stuff. So, I mean, I had the good audio equipment because I podcasted, but I was like, don't spend a lot of money on equipment. If you got good content, people will come for it and you can kind of upgrade along the way. But where you can just be like Brian. Brian's like me in this regard, where he said, look, this is all I'm ever going to be. I'm never going to change my style. I'm never going to implement green screens or crazy on-screen graphics or goofy skits, or I'm not going to sing to you. I mean, I don't know. I might sing a little bit, but yeah, not more than usual. So yeah, I'm never going to change.
That's what I say about
Brian is either. What I love about Brian is he says, "Oh, I'm going to edit that out," and he never does.
That's right. I know. Yeah, that's what I say about my teaching as well. There are teachers that I work with and have worked with who, and I'm not even insulting them. It's just different styles where the way they teach is they set up this big elaborate thing, and they set their classroom up like a fifth grader's birthday party, right? There are all these like games and stations that the students circulate around to, and there are things on the wall that they have to interact with. And I teach like Socrates on a hill, just, teaching stuff to students, direct instruction, Socratic style discussion, sometimes informal small groups. I let the students choose their groups and it goes really well and they learn a lot. And teaching is something I can brag about. I'm good at teaching. And I don't dance like a monkey up there. It's very simple and I hold their attention. They never misbehave. And I have teachers that are like, well, if I don't do that, then they won't have anything to do with their hands. And then midway through class, we need to do a yoga break and breathing exercises. And you don't need to do any of that with kids. They want to learn. So,
when do we get to this point to where we're afraid to say that we're good at what we do? I don't know when that kind of started. If people call it now, they call it like, oh, you're so cocky. I'm like, I used to call that confidence, because, for example, I'll do a video and I'll think, it wasn't up to my standard. I didn't do very good. And then I will say how great it was. And then for example, I'll look at another channel who does something similar and I'll watch and I'll be like, this person has 350,000 subscribers and I'm better than them, So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what point it ever got to where we're like afraid to say that we're decent at what we do. So
I hear you, man. Thank you for giving me the permission.
No, awesome. For sure. If you want to say that you're a great teacher, I mean, if your students enjoy what you do, you're able to hold their attention, because I mean, I hear these stories from my wife all the time. I'm like, she gets down on herself and I'm like, you tell me all the time about these crazy conversations or these kids who hang around your class after class is over. They don't do that for the teachers they don't appreciate. So
that's right. That's a superpower, man. It really is. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for doing this with me. I had a lot of fun.
Hey,
I appreciate you coming on.
I can do this forever. It's not a big deal to me. I love coming on other people's channel, guys. People are always like, oh, thanks for, coming to my small channel or something. I love it, guys. I don't have to edit the video when it's done. It's awesome. It's awesome. I love being able to talk to other people. It's like I said, it's why I got into doing this. I want to talk to other people, so.
Thanks a lot, man. You're the best at what you do. Just keep on doing it and we'll get behind you. We got your back, man.
I hope to. So thank you very much. And I look forward to that Buffy video.
Oh yeah, it's coming March. Well, we're gonna try to do it for the, what is it? The 20th anniversary of Buffy. We're trying to pick my wife knows it, whatever it it's March 10th, I believe, is the something, it's some
Right, 'cause it was a
anniversary.
mid-season replacement when it started. Yeah, that first season was only like 8 episodes. So yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to line it up with that. We're gonna like make it in advance, and so you'll get it March 10th. So
Well, if the
look out for that.
apocalypse comes, beat me, as Buffy would say. Yeah,
Yeah,
bring it on.
that's right. That's right. All right, man. See you later.
Take care.